Yeah, I don't mind either way. I just try to be nice.
And I like, I'm an asshole, so. You're listening to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, a travel podcast with hosts Stephen Seagraves, Fosma Moon, and Seth Miller. Hello and welcome to episode 341 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. I am Stephen Seagraves, joined by Mr. Seth Miller, who has cooled off like I have.
Excellent.
We are out of the heat wave, I think, for now.
A little bit. And have to apologize. This is 3 weeks in a row of just the two of us. We tried 3 different guests for this week's episode, admittedly, like all an hour before we started recording. But they all told us, what are you, crazy? It's a holiday weekend. Get the hell out of here. Because they were recording this before, and we were not.
People are taking vacations, like normal people. Yeah. And we have to apologize a little for Seth's audio. You're going to hear cars every now and then. Seth is protesting some New Hampshire something or another, and he's doing it in the street, so... I'm completely joking. Seth's just sitting on his porch because the weather's nice, and who can blame him? So, we got some follow-up, some FU from last week. You went to the United event that announced the new interiors and the new plane orders.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
It's pretty nice, is the short answer, right? I mean, I will say one thing we noticed sitting in a hangar at Newark when the outside air temperature was like 95 degrees is that all those screens turned on at full blast without the air conditioning on the plane running because it was in a hangar was really hot.
Yeah.
Which has nothing to do with how it will be, in reality on the plane, right? Like normally there's air conditioning on planes that works, so that was fine. No, it was really nice to see the screens active. I mean, it is the newest version of the Panasonic IFE system. It was responsive. It worked nicely. The screens are 10-inch HD, really nice. They've got the USB-A port right under the bottom of the monitor and headphone jacks. The Bluetooth pairing works, which I shouldn't be so surprised about because they've actually installed it on all these planes now, or 2 so far and 500-ish more to come. But having seen it demonstrated at trade shows for the past 3 or 4 years and how poorly it worked, the actual implementation version is really nice. It was impressive to watch.
You talked about that briefly, your experiences briefly with the Bluetooth on the last show, and you said it was subpar, and it's better?
I was very skeptical. I mean, they did some really interesting things that are specific to an airplane. Like if you think about it on your phone, if you turn on Bluetooth and you go add new device, then you sit and stare and you watch the wheel spin or whatever, and then eventually the phone decides when it wants to refresh and what it wants to show you. Mm-hmm. On the plane, they put a refresh button because, maybe you're late getting your thing into pairing mode. It's also easy to keep tapping the refresh button because it doesn't show up immediately and then, never actually seeing your headphones show up to pair because you're not letting it do its full scan. But being able to, pull that screen up and then turn on pairing mode and then hit refresh and control that refresh cycle is pretty cool. It's a very little thing, but it's someone paid attention to how that experience is going to be and thought about it, especially with all the different devices that are going to be on the plane. You can only pair one set of devices to any particular IFE screen. So if you want, which is normal, right? So, but still, it sort of yours once you're done, once you're paired, you're no longer in pairing mode. I guess there's sort of a risk that someone could leave theirs screen in pairing mode and detect your headphones from a seat or two away, and then grab it from you and pair it to their screen instead during that pairing window. That would be a pretty rude thing to do, but I suppose it's possible. But other than that, it seems like they put a lot of thought into that feature. So I'm impressed by that. And just overall, I mean, mood lighting doesn't do much for me on the planes, but it's there. The first class seats are, the seats are basically the same as what's been rolling out for a while. So they're fine. They're not special, but they're fine. I still had some legroom even in the worst seats in economy. The lavatories in the back are still tiny. When 2 cars go by, I'm sure it's really loud for you guys. Sorry about that. But no, in many ways, it is just sort of a United plane, but the IFE system on board and then also the larger overhead bins, I think it's going to be a relatively reasonable, it's still, domestic coach or domestic first class, but I think it's a nice version of that. And the IFE system, I think they did a good job with the IFE system.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a nice system to use, easy to use. It's intuitive, it's fast. But I would say one thing I noticed just from pictures is, they're using the first class seats that they started installing on the Airbus fleet a while back, and they've now become like the standard United first class seat with the marble tray table or whatever.
Yep.
I'm not a huge fan of that seat. I guess I don't mind the seat. I don't like the tray table and the middle console very much at all. I think it's hard.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's hard to get in and out of the seat for the person in the window, just because of the way it's laid out. Like that, the little drink holder piece sticks out so much that you have to kind of squeeze yourself around it to get out of the seat. And I've just thought it's kind of one of those things where it's like, someone's got to be watching this when they fly first class and go, this is not good.
Yeah, well, that's also a function probably of pitch has been reduced by an inch or two over the years, and other things. It's that same little drink holder, like the water bottle holder in the center console, also now has the screen remote. There's actually in first class there's a hand, like the little remote control for the screens in it. It's not only a touch screen, so that's something that it doesn't take up space or anything. It's sort of embedded into the frame, but that's if you put a water bottle in there, then you can't get to the remote. So interesting. Yeah.
Is it wired? I'm guessing it's wired, so it's kind of like what they had on long haul flights. Yeah,
it's that same one. The other thing I'll say, in bulkhead rows, first class the screens are mounted on the wall. Economy, they're in the armrest. So,
gotcha.
The bulkhead, whatever, row 7 or whatever United calls it now, that armrest will not go up on the new planes where it does on today's.
And that's an odd choice, right? Because it's one of those things where, if it's in the bulkhead wall, right, for a coach, I guess with pitch the way it is nowadays, and with the reclining seats, they need some space in front of the bulkhead for those seats, I'm guessing. So maybe they just couldn't put it there. I don't know. It's a weird choice to put it in the armrest.
Yeah, I think it is interesting. I don't know. I think the challenge there is probably if you mount it onto the bulkhead, because it's a soft bulkhead, the wiring stuff gets to be challenging there. I will say, and I forgot about this, and it's nice to see, and I think it's a difference from the old United or Continental 737s to the newer versions today. The bulkhead row, the wall doesn't go all the way down, so you can actually use the underseat storage. And I'd forgotten about that. So when I flew out, I was in the bulkhead and was worried about getting my bag in an overhead, and then got on board. I was like, oh, it does still fit underneath the seat. Just a backpack.
That is good to hear. I mean, that's always been one of my. I love the bulkhead row if I can put stuff underneath the seat. If I can't, it's useless to me. And one of the things that they've done on the Airbus fleet is that they put some of the emergency equipment underneath there, so they don't let you use it, which I think is ridiculous. But anyway, besides,
I did see that. There's an oxygen, but it's on the back or on the front of that dividing wall.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think it must have been on the other side of the aisle, on the ABC side. I was sitting in F.
Yep.
And I don't know if it blocks the space or not, but that was something I saw.
Yeah. They sometimes have that blue bag. And I think that's when flight attendants want to put their stuff in the overhead, so they move that blue bag that has seatbelt extenders and stuff like that. So let's switch to something a little different, some new topics. A carrier in Alaska is apparently smoking a peace pipe or drinking the water, and there's something funny in it. Raven kind of came out with a weird announcement that they were going to start flying to Asia and the lower 48.
So can we start with who Raven is?
Yeah, Raven's this little regional carrier that flies prop planes around Alaska.
And went bankrupt in early pandemic era. So new funding, new owners, new CEO, and new challenges with YouTube privacy settings. The CEO recorded a missive to the staff saying, his weekly update of this is what we're up to these days, and accidentally marked it as public, and it got found by a reporter in Alaska who shared it on Twitter, and then copies were made and transcripts and such. And basically what they said is they want to buy up to 10 757s, add ETOPS and the Boeing certification or the Boeing operations to their certificate, and start flying as a low-cost carrier model with 757s using Anchorage as a hub from Seoul and Tokyo, and then eventually Osaka on the Asia side. And the 5 cities he picked for the U.S. side to start were Ontario and Oakland, California, Las Vegas, Newark, and Orlando. What do you think?
I want to know what's in the water.
Are you saying that because you don't think long-haul LCCs work? Because you think it won't work to Asia? Or just because it's all crazy? Because you're not going to be able to find 757s?
One, where are they going to get the 757? That's my question. Are they going to buy United?
That's easy. There's tons of them out there.
Really? I thought most of the useful ones have gone cargo. Or Argo?
I mean, you've got all the PS ones that aren't yet scrapped and haven't been sold. So for the right price, I'm sure United would sell them.
But aren't those the shitty engines?
They are, but does it really matter for Raven?
Well, you've got to be able to do, I think, 3,900 miles.
I think they can. Those can, because Delta was doing 3,900 miles with the Pratt & Whitney engines. So they're capable of doing it. They just need to get the ETOPS certification.
I wasn't sure. I thought there was a range issue. Yeah. Anchorage to Orlando is 3,800 miles. So the westbound on that will be tough.
Remember, the old TWA ones were Pratt & Whitney engines. They weren't Rolls-Royce engines, and Delta was using them to go as far as Frankfurt.
Frankfurt? Really?
They were doing JFK Frankfurt on the TWA birds, yeah.
I wonder, I mean, okay, so they can get 757s, let's just say they can, and DHL or FedEx or UPS doesn't want them, which would surprise me because they seem to buy these things up in bulk whenever they can find them. So, okay, they can get the 757s. You're telling me there's enough demand from Tokyo, Seoul, and Osaka to Anchorage or somewhere on the West Coast to make this work? I don't know.
I think there's always, in those markets, there's space for a low-cost carrier.
Yeah.
Right? So that would be one thing. But I think, the first question that I had when I saw this was, will Raven even know what to do when they have to clear people through security? Because one of the nifty things about flying Raven was there's no TSA.
Because it's almost a charter carrier?
Yeah, they're so small, they don't need TSA. The flights are so small. And literally, when I did my Alaska milk run, we had to literally go out of security to go into the insecure area for Raven.
Yeah, there's a special TSA. Sorry, TSA has a rule that says small enough planes don't need security, which is how, like, a number of
Cape Air.
They're out of business. Well, no, Cape Air stays inside security because they all connect. It was the one that did Portland to Seattle back in a couple of years ago. They were outside security. And it was, like, super efficient and whatever. It was a 12-seater plane.
Like
a 20-seater plane.
Boutique Air?
There was someone before them who did it. But yeah, Anyway. Port Air, something like that. Seaport.
Yeah.
Seaport.
Yeah, Seaport. Yeah.
God, I don't know where I pulled that out of. Anyway, but they didn't have security, and then they realized that people actually wanted to connect, and so they chose to move inside security. Raven, and the rules in Alaska, if I remember correctly, actually allow even bigger planes to be outside of security because it's Alaska, and the planes can't get to the lower 48 and crash into any buildings, so no one seems to care. And so, yeah, but that rule exists, and so that's why they stay outside security there. So, yes, Foz makes a good point. Will they figure out how to process people through TSA? One of myriad challenges coming along here. It's, on the one hand, like, I sort of understand Foz's point that there's plenty of demand for that, right? Like, Zip Air is JAL's new low-cost carrier, but they're doing 787s from Tokyo to the U.S., and Honolulu was first. They did Seoul and Bangkok also. But Honolulu was going to be first, and then they were going to do, I think, the mainland, then probably LA and San Francisco. And Oakland and Ontario represent San Francisco and LA for this new Raven plan. Just because no good long-haul LCC has ever really succeeded doesn't mean one can't now.
I mean, if you look at the last 10 years, right, LCCs have thrived.
Yeah, but not long-haul ones.
Well, not long-haul ones, but, initially, short-haul ones didn't survive either.
True.
Right? So,
so the question is what's different?
And there's a time when the majors, the traditional carriers have upped their fares substantially. It is actually a ripe opportunity.
Yeah.
I feel like Foz just wants this to be a reality so he can get the lines.
No, I didn't say I would fly it. Let's be real. But, to your other point about 757s getting picked up by the cargo carriers, I wonder how much of that was driven by the lack of 767s available secondhand. Yeah, true. Yeah. Right? And we have a dearth of 76s available now.
True.
Right? From a cargo carrier operation, you probably want a 76 more than a 75 because you can do more containers.
Containers, yeah. On both decks. Yep. Easy. Bigger containers. I think they do containerized when they convert them to the 75s to cargo, don't they?
Up top they do, but not below, I think. Or maybe they do.
There's got to be a way. That'd be nuts. But yeah, anyway, better container, certainly. So it's going to be interesting to see, yeah.
What do you think that the likelihood... So, I mean, in the announcement, did they say what they were going to do first? Like domestic or international?
No, they're going to set up and do it. They want to... The plan is to be a connection hub. They don't really plan on many people getting out of Anchorage.
Interesting. That's cool.
I mean, one of the things I would say is just looking sort of at their route map and whatever. It in some ways it is very similar to Icelandair and Reykjavik, right? Like, the flights all come to the main hub and then redisperse back out on the other side. I think the main difference that I could see when looking at it is that Icelandair can use one plane and have it do sort of the full round trip from continental Europe via Iceland to the US and all the way back in the same 24-hour window. The stage length is longer because the eastbound from Anchorage to the lower 48, those will be much longer segments than most of what Icelandair was flying from Reykjavik to the continental, or to the mainland Europe. So it does have a sort of operational efficiency loss there, but if the planes are cheap enough, that might not matter.
Yeah. Kind of a random topic on the topic of low-cost carriers, something I just kind of pulled out. Allegiant had a major meltdown. Not Allegiant, sorry, Sun Country had a major meltdown. Sun Country.
One of their suppliers had a major meltdown.
Yes, and it looked, Minneapolis-St. Paul looked like a war zone. Like, this
is like one of the busiest travel days in years, right? We're recording this very early. We're recording this Thursday of last week, so fine. But, like, it was going into the holiday weekend. Sun Country's a very leisure-focused seasonal carrier, but was, like, ramping up massive for the holiday, and all those people are screwed now.
Yeah, stranded or unable to make it to where they're going.
Yeah,
in a timely fashion.
And what's really hard is there's not going to be any spare seats anywhere else. Like, how do you recover from this if you're the airline? Especially with no interline. But even if you had the interline policies, like, American is saying something like 90+% load factors expected this weekend.
Well, if it's Sun Country,
I imagine Delta and United are similar.
Yeah, if it's Sun Country, you just leave your passengers. They've done that before.
Right. Yeah, Mexico, right?
Yeah. But I guess the question that what's going on, right? We have this incident with Sun Country. Southwest has had a couple of weekends where they've had massive outages as well. And I think the other airlines are suffering.
Yeah, American hasn't had outages, but they've had crew issues. JetBlue is actually worried about crew staffing levels right now for the next month or so, to the point that they are offering like positive space and other bonuses for flight attendants who don't call out sick.
Wow.
But so the question is, all these staff members are getting paid. Why aren't they showing up to work?
So not all of them stayed, even though the PPP money, or the CARES Act, gave the airlines enough money to keep paying them, but the airlines still used it as an opportunity to offer buyouts and get people off the rolls.
Correct.
So that happened. So there are fewer people. Other than United, I think, of the U.S. carriers, not all the pilots stayed current. And I would imagine that there's a similar issue with flight attendants, although the flight attendant training to become current again is easier and faster. They still got to do it. And so I think part of the challenge there is that the airlines didn't, even though they were paying everybody, they didn't keep them all current. And part of you got to fly to stay current. So in some ways you can't keep everybody current, but they were not necessarily running training classes, not necessarily running all the systems through. And so there aren't as many employees ready to work right now.
Right, but there's two aspects to this, right? First, and I understand that, but we're still not anywhere near the capacity we were pre-pandemic. So we're still at probably about 60%, 70% of the capacity we were, if that high. And
it's higher than that.
Okay. I mean, but I still don't think we're... I don't know. Maybe on the regional side I would agree, but on mainline, definitely not. There's a lot more regional than there is mainline, proportionally.
How are we going to define capacity and recovery? I think one of the interesting things is it just total seats, passenger numbers?
Yeah, passenger numbers.
So I'd say we're like probably 70. We're well north of 75% on average for TSA screening.
Okay.
At this point, we're not well north, but we're right around.
But then subtract the growth that Spirit, Frontier have seen, because they've seen an Allegiant, because they've seen a huge growth in this time.
Fair.
Right, and then so at the traditional airlines, the majors, the top five,
the big four, whatever.
They're probably at somewhere 65 to 70%. Right, when you look at United, they're still not running a lot of the flights they did. Most of their frequencies are half, if not less, of what they used to run. So, and while I understand that they did trim staff, I don't think they trimmed staff to that extent. But the other thing is, these people didn't buy all these tickets overnight. Right,
the airlines sold these tickets months ago and knew that this was coming.
Yeah. This is a self-inflicted problem.
Yes, absolutely. An American is sort of the poster child for that, with having to cancel a bunch of services now and cut back because of shortages. But absolutely, definitely a cell phone game. But what I guess I don't know is, was there a way to avoid it? Like, how did they think more people would come back faster? Did they think they'd be able to train more people faster? Like, that's the part where I would be curious to find out what the airlines were really thinking.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some variables, but I mean, this isn't something that the airlines probably hold some responsibility or thinking they could probably run lean and not really accounting for enough sick outs or irregular operations. Right, we're in the peak of thunderstorm season.
Yeah. Not to change topics, but I also want to talk about open skies and some of that changing. Right. So Qatar and the EU have come to an agreement.
Yeah, somewhat surprising to me, but the European Union and the state of Qatar, have agreed to generally open skies, no limit on frequencies between Doha and any European Union member state for passenger service. Cargo, there's a limit of some countries are allowed to have, I think they're allowed to cap it at 7 frequencies from the European to from the EU to like a third party country, like from Frankfurt to the US or something like that. They can cap it, but other than that, it's pretty wide open.
I mean, this is incredible, right? Because like specifically, Emirates has fought to fly to cities in Germany that haven't been allowed previously, and it sounds like Qatar's getting that opportunity.
Actually, getting it, yeah.
So I guess it's a win for Al Baker.
Yeah, the chief. Sorry, goes by chief. He did pretty well on this one. It's I remain somewhat surprised that they pulled this off, and that the EU countries negotiating this all decided it was the right choice. I'm pulling up the thing here again to make sure I got the details on what's actually permitted. So, fifth freedom rights for all cargo services between the Union and beyond points, provided that the exercise of fifth freedom rights does not exceed 7 weekly frequencies per EU member state.
Okay.
And I will say, reading it again, I don't believe it permits for unlimited fifth freedom passenger service. It does not permit fifth freedom passenger service for either side. So, which means fifth freedom would be Doha to Frankfurt or Doha to Athens to Newark. Right? There's the Emirates version of it. They fly from Dubai, in theory, and they did a Milan to JFK flight for a while as well. That is not permitted under this, as best I can tell. Which oftentimes Open Skies does include fifth freedom service permissions. So maybe that limit was enough for the EU to be happy.
Yeah, that's an odd criteria.
Well, I guess they're less worried about Qatar Airways siphoning off traffic to Asia or to Africa than they are to the United States.
Yeah,
or North America, which is still, especially for the European carriers, still a lot of their business.
Yep. And on top of this, Europe is getting a couple of new carriers with
2 new airlines started last week.
Goofy names, I will say.
Play is the Icelandic replacement for WoW, but it's not the remnants of WoW, because the crazy lady bought those. And that's basically gone to die. But a bunch of original executives from Play went back to the drawing board with their A321 plans and have started service from Iceland to, I think it's Luton, London, was their first destination. And eventually plan to, again, bring the 321s to the United States and make that work. They're waiting for, the travel rules to loosen up again. Which, as a small aside, IATA is pissed and is trying to bully. They're mentioning the President of the United States on Twitter now and explicitly calling him out for not opening up traffic to European visitors, and I find that amusing. I don't know. I feel like maybe the last time around it would have been, a couple years ago, that might have been the way to get the attention of the president, but possibly not today. But anyways, so Play is one of them, and then Norwegian Flyer, FLYR. And so I have a certain affinity for an airline that likes to misspell their name, much like I misspell my blog names. But they're sort of doing a take on the old Norwegian model of flying mostly domestic Norway stuff right now, and presumably will expand to leisure destinations within Europe very soon as things start to reopen.
What are they using as their metal?
I don't remember.
I'd have to assume it's either 737 or A321s.
Yeah. And my quick effort to find them while we're talking about here.
It's 737.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, 2 planes so far.
Yeah.
Ooh, their call sign is Fox Green Star.
I like their livery. It's actually not bad.
All right. I haven't. Listen, can I get a picture? No. I did not get a picture on my click. Oh, well. Oh, no, that is nice.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I mean, it's Euro white, but it's got a big letters on the front. Nice greenish tail. Yep. Probably supposed to evoke the Northern Lights a little bit.
They could, you know who could take a page out of their book? United. Oh. Just
you like the tail?
I like. Yeah, it's lazy. I've talked about that before on the show.
United would just throw in some purple at this point.
I gotta say, I trying to take pictures of the blue on blue when I was at the event the other day, especially with all the LED blue backlighting they threw at it. Contrast was very hard to make happen on a camera.
They weren't thinking about that when they designed the livery, I'm guessing.
No, because they do all their shots with white lights around, but then they put us in a hangar and made it dark and moody. It was.
You could really shorten your statement that they just weren't thinking.
Ouch.
So in airline resurrection news, the Lazarus of airlines is Jet Airways, apparently. I am shocked, but B, a couple guys have managed to come together and put up $200 million to bring Jet out of bankruptcy. They've agreed to some interesting decisions that were required, obviously, by the Indian government. One of them is that there's about 5,000 passengers that have tickets that weren't refunded. And this went from when it went out of business. The new guys have agreed that they will refund those tickets. Wow.
And it's up to a limit. And it's, up to $200 per ticket. They cap it at that. But so it's, I guess when you think of it that way, that's $100,000. So in the grand scheme of all of the debts and how many millions of dollars are involved in this, that's probably not so much. But, nice nod for the passengers. One of the biggest challenges right now is, from what I can tell, they don't get any of their old slots back. And especially in some of the busier Indian airports, that's going to be a limiting factor.
What about planes? Do they get the fleet?
So the vast majority of the fleet was leased, and all the lessors took their planes back when Jet stopped paying for them. There are a handful of 777s and A330s that I believe are owned, and maybe some ATRs.
Will they lease the planes back to Turkish?
What do they got here? See if I can get some details on what they still own. It's maybe they own a couple 737s also.
I mean, you got to think about it this way: these guys they hate Air India enough to dig into their pockets to bring back Jet.
You've actually pretty much defined every Indian, including the ones that work for Air India.
Yeah, it's a true fact. I will say, they're actually non-resident Indians, so they don't live in India.
Oh, so they really hate Air India.
The main guy actually is based in Dubai and is bringing some of his money back to do this. So I find that very amusing.
So I'm thinking about this. Air India or Jet had a partnership at one point with Delta, right?
Delta KLM Air France, yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if that'll come back. I mean, I'm sure Delta would love that.
They actually moved their hub from Brussels to... They sort of operated a bunch of flights via Brussels to the United States, and they moved that to Amsterdam right at the end before they collapsed, trying to get some of the better feed from the partners there.
Yeah, so I'm sure Delta will love that because they can feed India via Amsterdam, which would be great, more than KLM.
You're assuming that these guys are going to show back up and do long haul flying right away. Which,
hey, I got hopes, man. I got hopes.
Well, the Indian laws have relaxed a little bit, but they still have strict limits on number of aircraft in operation. Like, you have to prove yourself as a domestic airline before you fly internationally, which was obviously designed to protect Air India. But now that Vistara and who's the other one, SpiceJet, have both started flying internationally. Vistara with their own planes and SpiceJet with wet leases, or keeps trying to do it with wet leases. It does present some interesting. It's a different competitive landscape now.
Yeah, for sure.
The slots thing is going to be the most interesting to watch.
Yeah, if they can actually get them back.
If they can get anything back, yeah.
Yeah. Let's. I mean, since Jet's back, we have to talk a little bit about death. Bolt Bus is no more, which is kind of wild. Bolt Bus was a low cost bus service. I believe you guys had them on the East Coast, right? We had them out here.
Yeah, we had them. I think they started in the New York area.
Yeah, so
It was originally like the Chinatown bus competitor.
Yeah. It was a low cost bus with Wi-Fi and super cheap tickets. You could get like if you booked it in advance, you could get $7 or something for a one way. And
so I have a theory on this.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you there, but I think they did this to try to run just long enough that people wouldn't know who the real owner was and remove the stigma associated with that. It's Greyhound.
It's Greyhound. It was running the bus service.
It was just a subsidiary of Greyhound. And so I think the idea was to get enough people, try to run long enough that people wouldn't remember what Greyhound was or that it has the, whatever its history and stigma was, which for me growing up was always not great. If they could have lasted long enough, then, they could have gotten past that. But now they're rolling it all back into Greyhound because Greyhound has Wi-Fi and power outlets too. Yeah.
So it makes you wonder. I mean, are they still going to run it as a low cost service? Right. I mean, that was the big thing, is that it was so cheap, especially from here to like Seattle. It was super cheap.
Greyhound's always been cheap too.
Okay.
I mean, that's the reality, right? They used to advertise single digit fares when they advertised.
Yeah. I think if anything, maybe they've sort of started yield management and revenue management. It'll be the sort of cheap if you buy in advance, more expensive, closer to day of kind of thing that smart companies try to do these days. And who knows? I mean, whatever. I don't remember Greyhound being super expensive, I guess is the other part.
Yeah, true.
But it wasn't you weren't buying dollar tickets, but I also don't think the dollar tickets were all that prevalent on Bolt Bus. I got a couple back in the day, but I don't think they stuck around for long.
Yeah. The other one's what, Metrobus, or there's one more?
There's Bolt, and there's Flix.
Yeah, but the blue one with the yellow lettering.
Yeah, Megabus.
Megabus, yeah.
Yeah, and Flix actually stopped in Germany, but restarted in the U.S. Did I get that right? I know they restarted out west. According to the article you shared with us about them shutting down in the U.S., but no, maybe Flixbus is back. They're back in Germany. Never mind.
Because Bolt Bus was owned by Greyhound, Megabus was Coach USA, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Don't know who owns Flix. But yeah,
it was a new German company.
Yeah, so it was just a spin on, the boat, and both Megabus and Bolt were just a marketing spin, for lack of a better term.
Millennial marketing.
Hey, they fell for it.
Bright colors.
But can we debate why Greyhound didn't call it Hound? Roar? I guess it would be a howl, not a roar, but I know.
Yeah, mic drop.
Yeah, I'm constancing that one. It's not going to get any better from your folks.
Co-Unihound.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a couple of bonus topics. We're going to talk about some United pre-ordering stuff for food and drink, and then we're going to talk about Air Canada and DOT issues. In the bonus episode. If you're a Patreon subscriber, stick around. You'll hear that. If you're not a subscriber, you can subscribe on Patreon and get this bonus content. If you don't feel like that, that's fine. Leave us a message. Tweet us. We'd like to hear from our listeners. But until next time, happy travels and bye-bye.
Take care.
Later.